Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways, family, and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms. Special shout out to our Patreon family. Thank you so much for supporting us on that platform. And family, thank you so much for liking and sharing the videos and all the comments that you give, and also for subscribing to the channel. Please go ahead and do so if you haven't already. And I recently talked about how the annual African Energy Summit was held in London, and it has been held in London for I don't know how many years. And it was, and it was actually disrupted by different activists who were talking about end oil colonialism. So I thought I'd go a bit deeper into what, oil colonialism actually looks at by looking at the two countries that produce the most oil in Africa, that's Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, and how they should be on the level of the Saudi Arabias and the UAEs of this world, and they're not. And the primary thing we're always told as Africans or on the continent is that it's because of corruption, our people are mismanaging the funds, our leaders are stealing the money. But it's much deeper than that, family. Because you see, neocolonialism, the roots of neocolonialism are global corporations, these private industries and privatization. Privatization was part of the neo-colonial framework because what governments could no longer do, they now transferred to these private corporations to continue their rule and their dominion, etc., etc. And since colonial times, oil has been connected to international corporations. I didn't even know this, but for example, in Nigeria, the British colonial government had actually started extracting oil before Nigeria gained independence, following the discovery of oil in the 1950s by Shell BP, and Shell BP till this day still controls a lot of the oil in Nigeria. And they say, the British colonial government bolstered a system of Nigerian oil extraction tailored to foreign, mainly Western corporations through a series of heavy concessions by the British government in Nigeria to foreign oil corporations. And since then, Nigeria only gets about 56% or something like that of its oil profits. And yet that's what the entire nation, that's what feeds its GDP, the gross domestic product. That's what the entire nation, the government mainly uses to function. But the other 50 or 40, whatever, they said 52%, although that doesn't add up. So it might be, 44%. Of profit goes to foreign corporations. This is just the profit. And a lot of the oil rigs in Nigeria and in Equatorial Guinea are controlled by foreign governments. The biggest players are the Shell, the Total. And they use, they use political manipulation, market control, because anyone who wants to trade in oil has to go through these Western corporations, and collaboration with different imperialist countries. And that's why you saw China recently moving in so heavily into the oil industries in both Equatorial Guinea and Nigeria. I mean, oil is 90% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings, and yet they're only collecting 52% of that profit. Most of the oil rigs are owned by foreign nations, and what they've done is they've transferred that ownership, or they've put it under dummy corporations in countries like Panama where the laws are lax, so that they can now manipulate, they can do whatever, they can cause environmental damage, things that, their agreements within the European Union or their agreements in the divided states wouldn't allow them. The laws in the divided states wouldn't allow them. And it's sad because Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea are among the two top oil producing countries in the world, family. That's why when I say they should be on the level of UAE, everyone's been talking about how Nigeria should be a giant. It should be. But how does a government allow almost 50% of its profit, of its main production to go to a Western nation. It's because these African energy summits are being held in countries like London, and this is the neo-colonial structure. Because they'll say, oh, this corporation owns this drilling, whatever, this other, Shell owns these oil fields, they're the ones running the costs, etc., etc. And then because they have a monopoly of the main, oil producers, now the ones who turn it into fuel, the Exxon Mobils, the Totals of this world. They can literally dictate, and we're not together. So, Western and Chinese corporations continue to invest enormous sums of money into Equatorial Guinea and Nigerian oil industries. Then they'll get these countries to take loans, etc., etc. And also the little money that they're getting, like the little money that Equatorial gets of its profits, it uses on major infrastructure projects. So only this article that I'm reading, family, I'll actually share it. It's called Neocolonialism Fuels Your Car. And it talks about how, they now invest in these massive infrastructure projects. So only less than 5% is going to education, is going to health, is going to build the country. So it's just and you can understand, because the presidents, when they get there and they see how the system is set up, no wonder they go into corruption. Because they're like, how are we supposed to get out of this one? Especially when we know that our people can be so easily manipulated. This is really sad, family. Listen to this. Many of the oil rigs that operate off the coast of Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea are internationally labeled as vessels and operate under flags of convenience. This means that these vessels are registered to nations such as Panama and the Marshall Islands with lax policies that consequently enable these enterprises to evade prosecution for environmental damage like oil spills, poor labor conditions, etc., etc. And actually, there's been heavy research that shows that these areas now, right near the oil rigs, there's a lot of disease, there's a lot of outbreaks, a lot of pollution to the environment. There's no electricity, there's no running water, and yet your oil is fueling the world. You're one of the biggest oil producers in the world. So family, I think it's so important for us to realize that the neocolonial structure is way deeper than we think. It's been created, it's been mounted on the pillar of economics. And the imperialists, the former colonizers, have now taken on the face of these corporations. And this article goes on to say the Equatorial Guinea and Nigerian governments feed huge sums of government revenue back into the oil extraction economies due to these governments' long-standing connections with such foreign enterprises. Although some scholars argue that the root cause of inadequate education and stagnant economies is the corruption of local governments, it is necessary to look at the modern day situation within its historical context and acknowledge that these nations are incredibly dependent upon the funds generated by the activities of Western corporations on Nigerian and Equatorial Guinea soil, and they are the they are the face of the neocolonizer. So not only do they get half the profit, but the government will then invest money to help these corporations find more oil. Family, this is why I say we've never been free. Until we're controlling our resources and our people are benefiting from those resources. I mean, when you really look at the big picture, family, you will see that our governments are stealing the little that we're getting. And as much as we need to call them to task, we need to also call to task those that are still siphoning off, literally, have put us in an oil colonialism situation. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, family. Tuko pamoja.